We are joined by a member of Momentum Movement, but also Renew Europe. Of course, you're running in this coalition, hoping that this will be the final term for Viktor Orban. And, of course, Katalin, Cseh, thank you so much for joining us. I have to ask you, I was struck by the narrative of this election. What Viktor Orban says, and this is the core of his campaign, is that he is the only one that can guarantee safety and freedom, and everyone else is going to take Hungary to war. What's your take on that?
I find it absolutely horrifying, the amount of cynicism that are in the words of Mr. Orban. He is a loyal ally of Vladimir Putin for 12 years. He's protecting a war criminal. His foreign minister just received a friendship medal from Sergei Lavrov a couple of months ago. He is in war with the EU, he is in war with all our allies for so many years. I believe the only coalition that can guarantee Hungarian peace and safety is a government that is loyal to the EU and NATO and not perceived as stooges for Vladimir Putin there.
And you've made it clear that in your eyes, Viktor Orban is a puppet for Vladimir Putin, which of course is ironic because usually it's Orban who says everyone else is a puppet, be it for international finance or the globalist of the world, as he likes to say. But on a serious note, how worried are you about this friendship between Orban and Vladimir Putin? We know that this goes back 10 years, but how worried are you about the real implication it has for government?
I am extremely worried. Because right now it's not only a theoretical possibility, but there is an actual war raging in the neighboring country. If you live near the Hungarian-Ukrainian border, you can hear the sirens. And yet we have a government who is standing on the side of the aggressor, and so many times he was vetoing in favor of Russia in NATO just a couple of weeks before the war broke out to deny cybersecurity assistance to Ukraine. We need a government that clearly recognizes that the fight of Ukraine is not only for Ukraine, but for Europe as a whole. And we have to stand united to stop Vladimir Putin's war crimes.
And of course, what Viktor Orban says is that when you look at the European sanctions, that he's always voted in favor of it, so therefore he's in the consensus. But again, he has repeatedly said, however, I have to watch out for my own interests. I'm not the president of Ukraine. Would you say at this point, is this creating tension between some of your partners? And I'm thinking of countries like Poland, the Czech Republic, and so on, that actually have taken a much harder line on this?
Orban has been isolated in the EU for so many years, and over the past few weeks he lost even his remaining allies. Poland, which was his closest partner, now abandoned Orban over his stance on Putin. The V4, the regional cooperation that he was so proud of, now is a V1, because nobody of the neighboring countries decided to join Orban for a summit, also over Putin. I suppose in this very precarious situation, all we have to do is to work with our European allies and our NATO allies. Going alone in a country of 10 million people is an extreme danger of everybody. We have to hold together, and this is what the new government will promise in April 4th.
And you mentioned there was a meeting that was scheduled to happen here in Budapest, the famous V4, that includes, of course, Poland, and they decided not to send anyone given the context here. But I also want to ask you a question about the future for Hungary. This would be his fourth term. At this point, there has been many questions about rule of law and about the separation of power that goes on in this country. How fragile is the system, in your opinion?
It is extremely fragile, and you know, the destruction of democracy is faster than anybody could imagine. And I suppose this goes also for our international viewers. If you don't take care of your democracy, it can get lost so easily. And I really feel that this is the last election in Hungary where we can turn the process around. We can restore Hungary as a really democratic, real European country, because he destroyed institutions to such an extent that now we have to take this very last chance to battle him.
And of course, what he says, or what he would respond to that, is that, well, go talk to the people. I'm very popular. I always win the popular vote, so therefore I'm doing something right. I wonder, is there something that perhaps he is doing right? Like, what is it that still keeps him in power? Because there's got to be something that connects with people here.
Well, first of all, he is lying if he's saying that he won the absolute majority of votes. Last election he came below 50%, and yet he still has absolute power in parliament. But the real problem here is that he has an absolute control over media. He established a system of interdependencies so much that if somebody lives in a small town and they rely on the government for work, if they work for public services, they can be easily asked not to go to opposition rallies, not to take flyers from the opposition. Otherwise, they can risk losing their jobs. So I think we have to break free of this system of threat, and we need to reestablish freedom and democracy for all.
And what you were telling me off camera is that this has not been an easy campaign for you, that at times you felt almost uncomfortable by some of the measures that Viktor Orban and Fidesz, according to you, would take to try to intimidate you in your campaign rallies.
Well, it's one thing how I feel. I'm a European politician. I think the real question is how those people feel who go to an opposition rally in a small town, and we have people in the audience who are filming those who are in attendance, and they are scared for their jobs, for the jobs of their kids and grandkids. No wonder that so many young people have left Hungary over the past 10 years because they don't want to live in a surveillance state. They want to be able to exercise their opinions freely.
And just as a very brief question, there has been a lot of controversy around rule of law, in particular this Child Pornography Act, which the European Union says is a problem because it conflates LGBT rights with pedophilia. And if you get to government and you sit there and now you're in government and you're in power, would you completely move away from this Child Pornography Act? Would you just ditch it?
Well, it's a very obvious smokescreen for Orban's other types of crimes. Child pornography in conflation with LGBTQ freedoms came into the discussion when the European Union decided to sanction the Hungarian government over corruption. We didn't get European money, and Orban's answer was that the Brussels gay lobby, or so how he calls it, tries to attack the Christian family policies of Hungary. This is an absolute smokescreen. This referendum that we are having on the same day of election is a sham. So we just feel that this is an absolutely negligence of all the real threats that are actually out there for Hungary, but this is more connection with the economic situation and with the war.